The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. This is program number 944, coming to you on Monday the 29th of July 2019. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic, Buy a Receipt Book. But before getting into the topic, a few preliminary comments. Firstly, and as usual, I would like to send out condolences to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. Next, I want to touch on the political situation in the United States of America. To impeach or not to impeach? That is the question facing the Democratic Party. I made a comment a few weeks ago that the Democratic Party doesn't appear to me to be serious about defeating President Trump at the next election. And nothing that has happened so far has persuaded me to change my mind. In the next 2 nights after tonight, they will be having another round of presidential candidates debates, at which they would be going at one another and seeking to tear one another down. 20 of them, 10 one night, 10 the other night. President Trump is a different kind of president from all the presidents I have either known in my lifetime or read about. He is a genuine radical. And I don't necessarily say that in the progressive sense of the term. But he appears to be able to get away with saying practically anything that comes into his mind. But the Democrats who say they want to defeat him in the next elections, will the Democratic candidate who emerges from these skirmishes be qualitatively any better than President Trump? I have my doubts. Because by the time they are finished with one another, those who remain standing would be practically at the mercy of President Trump. President Trump appears to understand what motivates the vast majority of American citizens. He appears to have touched a responsive nerve. He knows how to arouse the passions of his supporters. And if the Democrats think it is going to be easy to defeat him, whoever they put up, they should think again. President Trump is a boss at political maneuvering. So they had better watch it. Not that I am enamored of the Democratic Party, because for me alone they're hardly any better than the Republicans in some of the key policies which they espouse, particularly their policies regarding modern lifestyles. Can't take that. And then earlier this year, when in Venezuela Mr. Guaido attempted to replace President Maduro by a coup. The Democrats sided with the President of the United States of America in calling for the removal of President Maduro. So I am not a supporter of the Democratic Party in the United States of America. I used to be when President Obama was at the head, but not again. And if I were an American voter, I would hardly know who to vote for next election. But that is their headache, and we will see how the whole business pans out. Congratulations to Mr. Boris Johnson in the United Kingdom, having become Prime Minister. He not only resembles President Trump in looks, but in policies, he appears to be going the Trumpian route. Because we have so many of our brothers and sisters who are living in the United Kingdom, we have to hope the best for them and for the UK. But I fear that Mr. Johnson, if he goes along the path which he embarked upon like a bull in a china shop, he will ruffle the feathers of the European Union leaders, and Britain would have an ignominious exit from the EU fraternity. Let us just hope and pray for our brothers and sisters who live in England and other parts of the United Kingdom. But I now turn to the topic for the evening. Buy a receipt book, and in a while I will tell you why I am giving that advice. Excuse me. As everyone knows, the court system functions primarily on the rules of evidence, whether in criminal matters or civil matters. Evidence. A person cannot be convicted of any offense in the criminal law unless there is evidence tending to show that the person has committed some offense. That is, if the person has not pleaded guilty. Person pleads not guilty. In the course of a criminal trial, the prosecution has to establish the guilt of the person, and guilt has to be based on evidence. The same on the civil side of the equation. In civil matters, you go to court over a land issue or some other civil issue, and if you do not have the evidence to support the allegations you are making, chances are you would lose the case, whether you're for the claimant or the defendant. Evidence. What is evidence? Evidence is some act or deed tending to show the existence of a certain fact. You cannot go to court in a civil matter, take the oath, or affirm, if you do not believe in taking the oath, and recite to the judge your opinion about a certain state of affairs, what you thought about it. No. The judge wants to hear what are the facts, what are the things you can prove. And the topic I have chosen to do for you this evening has to do with proving that you spent a sum of money or sums of money. A receipt book is a small bound document containing several pages divided into pairs, an original and a duplicate, and you normally get a carbon paper to put between the original and the copy below. When you write on the original, it prints out on the copy below. Simple receipt books, and that is all I'm speaking about, not complicated ones. Simple receipt books are available in practically all stationery stores for between $5 and $7, and I've seen receipt books for $4 something, $3 something. So they are cheap. You get them at Korea City Store, Nightingale Bookstore, Budgemat, Jack's. Practically all bookstores in town. L&G sales, $4, $5, $6. Now, everybody doesn't need a receipt book, but if you are going to spend appreciable sums of money, especially if you do so repetitively, time and time again, you're called upon to spend largest sums of money, not $2, $3, but $40, $50, $60 and above. And you are in a situation where the time may come when you may wish to prove what you spent. The best way to do that, apart from keeping the receipts where you get them, is to have your own receipt books. If you go to any supermarket and you buy an item costing even 10 cents, the teller rings it up on the cash machine, and the teller will give you a small slit of paper as your receipt. That slit of paper will have on the date of the purchase and usually the time of the day when that purchase was made and the amount of the purchase. Some of them will have the description of the goods you have bought. Unfortunately, the quality of what you get from the supermarkets is uniformly poor. Indeed, the quality of what you get from some of the hardware stores is generally poor, so that you get a receipt from X or Y store. In 2 to 3 months, you can no longer read it because the print that started off as very faint in the first place becomes completely illegible because the print fades. I'm going through some receipts I got from distinguished hardware shops last year. I can't read them now. All the writing is fade because the ink in the machine that prints them out is of poor quality. So they are no use because they cannot be read. And I've drawn this to the attention of cashiers, but the poor cashiers, they simply operate a cash machine. It's their superiors who are supposed to make sure that when you get a receipt, it is something you can keep for a long time. as used to happen days gone by. But nowadays, everything seems to be counterfeit. Nothing is of any useful quality as far as I see. And you're probably better off in the days when they used to write out a bill and give it to you. Those you can keep for years and years and years, but the modern receipts you get from the cash machines at the outlet in most shops, hardware shops, and so on, poor quality. Anyway, if you are living with somebody in a common law relationship, you're not married, but you're living together, the time may come when the relationship may break up. The time may come when one of you parties to the relationship might die, leaving behind a series of problems as to who contributed what to the assets built up by the couple during the tenure of the relationship. Let us take the simplest and most frequent example. A woman and a man decide to live together on a piece of land which the man had got from his family, or vice versa. Could be a piece of land that the woman had got from her family. Or indeed it could be on a piece of squat land, government squat land. When they establish their occupation of the land, nothing was on the land except some trees. Together they struggle and build up a little dwelling. But no matter how modest that dwelling, they have to spend money. Even if it is a plywood dwelling, they have to spend the money. They have to pay for materials. They have to pay a carpenter or two. They have to pay workmen. So they struggle together and they build a dwelling. They might be fortunate enough to be able to put something in wall if the land is belongs to one of them, because it's dangerous to put a squat structure, a wall structure on squat land. But whatever they build up together as a home, as modest as it might be, they have to spend money for it. Over time, they have children, and next thing you know, there's a quarrel or a series of quarrels. They fall apart. Question becomes, to whom does the structure belong? And if it is accepted that it belongs to both of them, in what shares? Does it belong to both of them equally, 50-50, or 60-40, or 70-30, or some other proportion? That would depend on who put what into the building of that structure. The woman may say, look, I used to pay workmen, cook for them, and so on. The man would say, I was the one who worked for the money. Neither had a receipt book, so neither could prove what he or she had spent. Now, if one had a receipt book, and as I said, I'm not speaking about anything sophisticated. You don't need an accountant for that purpose. A simple, ordinary receipt book, received from so-and-so, the sum of so-and-so, for so-and-so. If one had a receipt book, and every time you paid a workman $40, $50, $60, you wrote receive from, and you put your name, the sum of $60 for work for, and you put the date and so on. And when you come to pay the workman, you say, look, please sign this for me. The workman may make silence, say, sign what? Say, please, don't just sign. The workman signs, and you keep that. That receipt becomes evidence of what you paid that workman and the date on which you paid it and what you paid it for. Let us say you all are building a wall structure, part wall, part board. You have to pay somebody to bring a load of sand, probably a load of Arabica. You buy some blocks. Usually the people who sell blocks will give you a receipt. Sometimes they don't. So you go with your receipt book. You bought 56-inch blocks or 54-inch blocks. You pay for them. You write out the receipt, receive from yourself, again, so much and so much for 50 or 60, whatever the quantity is, and the price. And ask the block maker to sign that for you, the person to whom you pay the money. Similarly, if you ask a plumber to do the plumbing, plumbers don't walk around with receipt books, but you are the one paying the money. You are the one who might have to prove later on how much you spend and what you spend it for. You see, you can't just go into court and look at the judge and say, well, I had spent $5,000 and don't have a piece of paper to prove that, or don't have any witnesses to say, yes, I received so much and so much from this person for doing such and such a work on the house, or for delivering this and that in materials. You need the evidence, and if you had a receipt book, it would be easier if you have a dispute that ends up in court for you to prove what you spend and for what, so that if push comes to shove, you would be able to establish the expenditure you made on that dwelling. Because if you simply go on trust, you all are living good. And you say, well, look, he or she will always be a nice person and honest and so on. Wait until you end up in court. And you will see the capacity human beings have to tell lies and make the lies sound like gospel truth. But if you had a receipt book, you can say, look, I paid for so much and so much in Arabica, I paid workmen, and you have the dates and how much. And then if you go to a lawyer to represent you in court, the lawyer will have evidence to put forward on your behalf. But you can't go to the lawyer and say, well, I did spend so much and so much. The lawyer will say, well, how do we prove that? Well, that's not good enough. Maybe a case of both of you not having any paper, but your papers your receipts may have become lost, or worse still, your partner in the relationship may have deliberately torn up or destroyed your receipts. Seeing that you're saving them up, your partner thinks, okay, he or she is planning to use that against me. I'm going to tear them up, I'm going to burn them up, I'm going to destroy them, I'm going to throw them away. So the other moral of the story is, if you are sensible and you live with a person whom you think the time may come when you all may dispatch, keep your receipts with a good friend or with a family who don't live there, who live elsewhere, where your partner can't find them to destroy. Now, there was a time when banks used to operate with bank books. They don't do that long time. The banks don't bother with bank books again. Slips of paper. But in the days when you had a bank book, you could trace all your deposits and withdrawals over a period of time, so that at least you could go to court and say, well, look, this withdrawal of $250 made on such and such a date was what I withdrew to pay for so-and-so. And that would help your case because it is some kind of evidence. But these days when the banks no longer have bank books, which is a pity, and there's so much about banking that is disgusting and distasteful these days. It is difficult to keep track through the banking records of what you withdrew and what you put in. So you no longer have bank books to rely on. It is a great pity. Banks are more interested in charging you for this, that, and so on. You go into a bank and say, good morning, you almost have to pay for that. So that whatever the situation, it is always good to keep records. And let me tell you, there are some countries, and I know for a fact Italy, because I had some Italian clients once, they said by law, Italians have to keep evidence of all the expenditures in the form of your receipts. You have to keep them, and every now and then the authorities could send somebody to inspect your receipts, and if your receipts are not in order, you're in trouble. Because that society depends on the careful accumulation of records. We don't insist on that, but it is a good practice, common sense, to safeguard yourself in whatever situation you are, that if you are spending largest sums of money, try and get the evidence as to how you spend them. You never know, the time may come when you may need that evidence. All right? So go and spend the $4, $5, $6 to buy a receipt book, no man, for your own security. All right? All right, well, hope you enjoy Thursday, the Thursday holiday, which I still call August Monday. And take care of yourself, behave yourself, don't get into trouble. If you go on the beach, be careful. You're driving in traffic, be careful. Have a peaceful holiday. And for the rest of the week, may the good Lord bless us all until I return next week, Monday, Divi, for another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. Bye for now.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel P.R Campbell QC and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.